Hey everybody, Mr. Bast here, coming to you live from Banning State Park. There's an awesome waterfall right behind me here, and I'll show you. Pretty cool. So today's lesson is going to be all about aperture and how aperture can affect the brightness of a picture, so how bright or dark it is, but also how it can affect something called depth of field. Aperture is going to be affecting four main things in the picture. So depending on if you have a large aperture opening, so that would be a low f number, or a small aperture opening, which would be a high f number, you're going to be affecting the light in the picture and the depth of field. So for a large aperture opening, you'll let in more light, and you'll also get a shorter depth of field. That would make things that are beyond your focusing point more blurred. If you have a small aperture opening, you're going to have less light. You're also going to create a longer depth of field in the picture, which means that more things beyond your focusing point are going to show up as in focus, a little more clear. So I'll switch over here to the camera view and you can see how that is going to be changing with the settings that I choose. Having a real wide aperture, really wide open. So the lower the f number, the more wide the opening is. So that's going to make the picture brighter. As I start to close that aperture down with a higher f number, it's going to make the picture darker. So that's the first concept that I want you to know. The lower the f number, the wider the opening, the brighter the picture gets. The higher the f number, the darker the picture gets, because the opening is getting smaller. Right? The other thing that's going to happen with the picture is you're going to have a different depth of field. Depth of field stands for how much you have in focus at different distances from the camera. So with a really low number, if I take a picture here, you'll see that there's quite a lot of background blur going on behind what I focused on in the image and in front of. Right? If I start to change the aperture to be higher up, so I'm going for f5.6 now in this image, I'm going to lower my shutter speed down to have a little bit brighter picture. Take another shot. What you'll see is that the background becomes to be more in focus. As I change this even more, so an even higher f number, and I'll lower down my shutter speed just a little bit more and increase my ISO to make the picture brighter. Take another shot here. So this is f14. All of a sudden we have almost the whole image in focus. Right? So as you're changing your aperture, that's going to be one of the main ways that you can change your depth of field. Besides making it so that you have a picture that it's not too bright or not too dark. Generally, if I'm doing a wide open picture of a big scene like this waterfall area, I'm going to choose an aperture that's a little bit higher up. Right? That's going to make more of the picture in focus for my landscape picture here. Right? If I'm going to switch to doing a picture in a darker situation, or if I want to have a shorter depth of field, I may opt to have a lower aperture number. So all the way down, this lens can go to f2.8. Right? That might be if I'm trying to do a detail shot. Let me just zoom in here quick on this bark, and I'll lower down my ISO and take a picture here. So there I've got an image with a nice background blur, right? Because of the fact that I used a lower aperture number. So again, key concepts here. Aperture can be used to make a picture brighter or darker, right? It can also be used to make a picture have a longer or shorter depth of field to change how the background blur looks in an image. So again, higher aperture number, more in focus at different distances from the camera. Right, lower aperture number, so all the way down at 2.8, focus on something a little bit closer up to the image here, and you'll see that background blur blurs out. Right, so that's the key concepts here for aperture. One last time, we'll look at a closer view here. So here's f2.8. Notice the short depth of field. Here's f5.6, a little bit longer depth of field. And then here's our highest f number at f14, super long depth of field.